What's up, guys? Welcome into this week's episode of Pickup Sports Talk. I'm Spencer Stein.
And I'm Brandon Schiffman. Obviously, one of our favorite times of the year is the NFL playoffs. We have a lot to get to today with the NFL, and then we're eventually going to get into some college basketball and NBA. But let's just dive right into the NFL, if you don't mind.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's actually funny you said that, because I was thinking to myself on Saturday, usually I feel like the best time of year is when it's early football season and baseball is still going on and the NBA is starting. But really, this Saturday was great. We saw some great college basketball. The NBA, I think, had a good Saturday night showcase, and obviously the playoffs. So we'll get to all that. But as you said, starting with the playoffs, I know a lot of people were talking about the Cowboys game as the number one thing on Monday, but I really don't think people care that much about the Dallas Cowboys. I think the obsession's kind of done. I don't think they're America's team anymore. I think America's team is the Buffalo Bills, and they went down this weekend. So you want to start with that?
Yeah, so overall, it was the Buffalo Bills had a tough performance, I'm going to be honest with you. They lost 27-10 if you didn't know already. It's not that they necessarily had this awful, catastrophic meltdown. It's just they weren't the team that all year we thought they were going to be come playoff time. I think that's the only way you can really put it, and that's the way I'm going to put it.
And what it came down to was up front. From start to finish, the Bengals were the better team in that game. Mm-hmm. And I said, logically, the Bengals are playing better. I think Joe Burrow's better than Josh Allen. But I was thinking their offensive line's banged up, and the Bills' defense has been better all year. That didn't happen. Was it the Von Miller injury? Was it that the Bengals were more motivated? Yeah. I'm not sure. But despite that, the Bills were not pressuring Joe Burrow at all. They allowed him to do whatever he wanted. But more importantly, Josh Allen had no time in the pocket, and there was zero run game while the Bengals ran all over them.
And their passing game was just not great overall. I mean, they were passing the ball overall, but Stephon Diggs, who realistically coming in this game, if you're like, what do you think his stat line would be? I know I personally would probably say 7 receptions for 70 yards and a touchdown, something along those lines. Yes. Wound up going for 4 receptions for 35 yards.
And he was mad.
10 targets. 10 targets, they converted on 4 of them. That's not a good number. That is most definitely not a good number.
And it's not often coming away from a game I say, wow, that was just another domination up front, and this was that. Usually when I come and evaluate a game, I say, oh, they had a better deep threat. It was 1 or 2 plays here. They had a better run game. But it was on both sides of the ball, up front. The Bengals utterly dominated. I don't know what led to that, especially considering they were more banged up, but that's where the game was won. But despite that, even though Josh Allen had worse circumstances, I think he has similar weapons, but he didn't have any time in the pocket, and the run game wasn't doing anything to make it seem like they were going to run it anymore, while the Bengals showed the threat of that run game, mixing at 100 yards. I think we could still evaluate Joe Burrow and Josh Allen. Yeah. Do you agree with me now that Joe Burrow's top 2 quarterback in the NFL?
I'll give you one thing. I think it's 2A, 2B. I really do. I mean, there are things Joe Burrow has that Josh Allen doesn't have and vice versa. I think Josh Allen's athleticism and his ability to really just take over a game single-handedly is something that's extremely impressive to me. And legitimately one of those things that you really can't see in many other quarterbacks in the NFL. With Joe Burrow, on the other hand, he has this swag, he has this composure, he's very calm. He doesn't let the moment get to him, he's very stoic. And he can really lead a team, and he's shown that he can turn around a team. Both those things, I think, are invaluable, and I think it'd be hard to put one over the other. As of right now, I see them as tied. They're both right here. Patrick Mahomes is right here. And all I know is number 4... a little bit closer to down here.
Here's what I'm going to say. I think ever since Lamar Jackson's breakout season, maybe even Mahomes' breakout season, everyone's been looking at quarterbacks as a skill set type thing. Are they athletic? Can they run? Do they have a deep ball? Do they have accuracy? And when you're looking at that, Josh Allen, the reason I think all season and basically since last year people have said Mahomes and Allen are 1A and 1B is because they both have that skill set. Yeah. But realistically, I think if you throw Patrick Mahomes in the Peyton Manning, Tom Brady era, he doesn't win as much as them, or he wins close to as much as them. And that's considering how much I love Mahomes. Or let's say Josh Allen. Yeah, let's say you throw Josh Allen into there. Let's say Josh Allen, because Patrick Mahomes is special. You throw Josh Allen into that decade. Mm-hmm. I don't necessarily know if he wins. So I think although Josh Allen...
He hasn't won here either.
No, I know, but I'm saying I think although Josh Allen, people are saying, well, his deep ball isn't much worse than Burrow, but he also has that athleticism and running ability.
Better than Burrow.
No, I know, but when people are looking at their passer ability is close-ish, and people don't like evaluating that as much because it's easier to look at running versus running, and they see that Josh Allen is a better runner, much more athletic, leaves the pocket more. Everyone's so quick to jump to that. But realistically, Joe Burrow's beaten him. Joe Burrow's been a better team quarterback, and he has been a better thrower. But more importantly, he's had such a higher IQ. And that's why I think he's so much farther ahead than Allen. I think of Mahomes and Burrow as 1A, 1B. Then I see a drop-off to Allen. I put Hurts right behind him. So I truly think it's more like that because of that. And Josh Allen led the league this season in turnover-worthy plays. I said that last week. It still held.
That's a very good stat. I don't love stats.
Okay, well, I think he was top 3 in interceptions. He might have been number 1. I didn't check that. But regardless, I said if they lost... I wasn't Dex. He missed so many weeks. Regardless, if they lose this game, it's going to be because of the turnovers. And not only did he have an interception, interception, but he didn't throw any touchdowns. So that's what it came down to. And I think although Allen has all those abilities, Joe Burrow's like a Peyton Manning type talent. And if Dak,
Yeah.
and I said if you threw Josh Allen into that Peyton Manning era, I think he gets dominated. And I think right now Joe Burrow's playing like Peyton Manning. So just because Allen could run and Burrow can't, I'm saying Burrow is like far ahead of him.
But I think I agree. Josh Allen does make bad decisions, but I also don't think you could say, oh, he's athletic, and that might not have clicked in an earlier decade against him. I think he'd be just as good in an earlier decade. And if anything, his ability to run would make him more of a problem.
No, I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is that right now, everyone. No, that's not what I'm saying at all. I'm saying since Lamar Jackson, everyone's been looking at athleticism needs to be a check mark, and since Josh Allen has it and Burrow doesn't, he's better than him, and he's right there at Mahomes. But realistically, if you threw Allen into that era with Peyton Manning, yes, he might do even better. But people weren't going to say, "Oh, I need a quarterback who has what Josh Allen has, not what Peyton Manning has."
Yeah,
and right now, people are saying, "I need a guy who can run and throw." When we're looking at this year's NFL draft, people are looking more towards that with Bryce Young and even Anthony Richardson, who's I don't think as good of a prospect as Lamar, but now he's being mocked to go top 10 while Lamar went late first round. So I think the game is changed. So I think the game is changing in that way, but I don't see why it has to when Joe Burrow is much more successful quarterback than Josh Allen.
That's fair. I mean, I think Joe Burrow is kind of one of one right now. I mean, there are obviously quite a few guys in the NFL who have significantly better throwing abilities than running abilities. But I think Joe Burrow is the only one doing it at this level right now, if you will.
Yeah, I agree.
Next game, we're going to be looking at the Bills' future opponents, Chiefs-Jags. Obviously, the headline of this game is Mahomes' injury. Do you want to get into that?
Yeah, I mean, this completely changes the game. I mean, the Chiefs-Jags game was mediocre at best. It was, even though it was closer than the Bengals-Bills, I wasn't interested in it from the start. But what made it really interesting is once Mahomes got hurt, it's almost like the whole postseason landscape changed.
Completely, yeah.
Because not only was there a chance Chiefs lost that game, but looking into this week, that's what's changing my prediction. I mean, everything in that injury is making a difference in the game because Mahomes is the reason the Chiefs are the Chiefs. He's the best player in the NFL. I said, 2 years ago, I think he's the most talented player in NFL history. And obviously, if he can't use his running ability, Mahomes on one leg is still maybe a top 5 passer in the league, top 10.
I mean, we'll never know about that.
But the defense, especially that Bengals defense, with Joe Amaru, I think his name is, who's been a great defensive coordinator, I said last week should be up for a job, head coaching job. That defense will be able to conform if Mahomes can't run. I think they will be able to make his life hell. Yep. And if Mahomes is healthy, I'm looking at this game to be 35-31. But if Mahomes is out, then 31-10, literally. So
won't put together.
Mahomes will be playing. I just think if he's hobbling like he was in that second half against Jacksonville, they might not even have a shot.
I mean, here's my thing, right? When I looked at Mahomes' injury, obviously at first, my first reaction, obviously I'm more of a basketball guy, naturally. I think I told you this. I thought of what the 2019 NBA playoffs and how everything fell apart for the Golden State Warriors and how there are some angry people out there who try to use that against Kawhi Leonard. I think about that. And I think that there's a very real possibility that we look back at the end of Joe Burrow and Patrick Mahomes' career, and this is a moment that led to a sliding doors effect, where people could be saying, "Oh, well, Joe Burrow had this, but it came at the price of Patrick Mahomes' injury." One thing wouldn't have happened without the other, if that makes sense.
I think it's very different because first off, Joe Burrow's 3-0 against him with Mahomes being healthy, including a huge win on the road in the playoffs last year.
Fair.
Second off, they're so much younger. There's so much more career ahead of them. When you're looking at the 2019 NBA Finals, Kawhi was already beating them with KD healthy. Clay went down too. And by the way, that was a very good Warriors team. And it's not like football where if your quarterback who's that good goes down, you're screwed. That Warriors team had one with KD. They've won since without KD. So I think that's number one reason. And also, it's late in their careers. How often do you see them go against each other? Well, in this game, if Burrows already has the edge, and if they win this game, I can tell you with 100% certainty we will see another Bengals-Chiefs playoff game.
Yeah, for sure.
So but when I'm looking at this game, I'm not thinking about legacy. I'm thinking about how much of a chance, what does Mahomes' health need to look like for the Chiefs to have a chance?
Yeah,
I think it needs to be close to perfect.
Yeah.
So let's move on just to the Jacksonville side of things. There's not much to say in this game. Trevor Lawrence, I think, has established himself as probably a top 7 guy you'd want going forward, quarterbacks-wise. But looking at Jacksonville as a whole, do you think they are a top 4 team in the AFC future, right behind the other 3 teams that were in the divisional round with them?
I mean, the only other team I'd put with them, I think at least, would probably be the Miami Dolphins, just because although I think Tua has his struggles, I think overall they're building something good over there. But who knows how sustainable that is and how long-term it is. I mean, it all kind of crashed and burned at the end of the year. So I think I need to see some time next year before I can reevaluate.
Yeah, I think right now I'm probably taking the Chargers or the Jaguars just because I think you want a quarterback. And although the Dolphins have the best foundation and probably the best coach of the three, even though Doug Peterson was pretty good, they still don't have a quarterback. And when I want a franchise, I want a quarterback. So it'd probably be Jacksonville or the Chargers. And although I'd still slightly choose Herbert over T-Law, it's close. And Jacksonville might have more rounds. So I do think they're top 4, but definitely top 6. I think the future's bright there. Let's move to the NFC side of things, Brandon. The Eagles utterly demolished the Giants. I couldn't tell you more than 5 things that happened in this game because it was just snap, Smith, touchdown, and over. Yeah. So what do you think? Does this prove that the Eagles are the team to beat in the NFC again?
I mean,
or are the Giants just mid?
Yeah, I think everyone was starting to hype up the Giants. I never really saw the hype. Saquon was having a good year, and Daniel Jones was doing stuff with a bad roster around him. But I never really saw the whole, they're going to make a run thing. And I don't think many people did for that matter.
No one thought they were in this game.
I mean, yeah, I think Philly overall proved why they're here. And you wanted them to have, a nice, intro game to the playoffs. I think this was that.
This was perfect. I don't want to spoil any of my predictions, but I want to tell you this. Ever since November, the week before Jimmy G went down, I said the Niners were my favorite in the NFC and I wasn't moving. And then Jimmy G went down and I still didn't move. This Saturday and Sunday, specifically Sunday after the Niners played, was the first time since before then that I genuinely think the Eagles are the team to beat. I don't know if I want to change my prediction. I feel like I'm going to try and be a man of my word, but realistically, the Eagles look like the better team. They are dominant on the offensive side of the ball, and their matchup against San Francisco's defense is going to be a huge decider in this game. If they could play like they did against the Giants, it's going to be big. And the Niners didn't impress me. Their offense didn't. So when we're looking at it that way, where the Niners have slugged out their games and won them low scoring, and against the Eagles, they probably won't score many points. Maybe they get around low 20s. And the Eagles' offense doing this type of stuff, it makes me think they've got to be the favorite. So I think the Giants aren't a great competition. They had such an overachieving season, and if you're a Giants fan, we're not slandering you.
No,
I mean, that this season couldn't.
We fully admit we thought you guys were gonna go 5.
I mean, yeah, this was the best the season could have gone. Dayball's good. Danny Dimes might be the guy to stay. We'll talk about that in a few seconds. But great season, but still, they're a decent team. So I mean, to do this in a tune-up game is impressive. They made a statement. They're gonna be playing San Francisco at home. Yep. But I do want to talk to you about the Giants for a second. Yep. We agree this was such an overwhelming season. Sure. Very impressive, but Saquon and Danny Dimes, I think, are up for contract. Is Daniel Jones the guy to stay in New York, and do you think they should pay Saquon?
So, for starters, with Daniel Jones, obviously I want to give some context here. Coming into this year, preseason, if you told me the New York Giants, with the first overall pick, select Bryce Young, I'd be like, yeah, that makes sense.
Sounds about right.
They had a bad year.
Yeah.
Right? That opposite of that happened, and now they're in a weird situation. They have a quarterback who's proven he's above average, and he's in a contract year. And if they don't pay him, they don't have a good enough pick to get a really solid quarterback because they could start from day one, such as Bryce Young or even a C.J. Stroud, I'd say. So I think their only choice is to pay him.
I mean, but also, I don't think you could commit to him long term.
That's the issue. They've played themselves into
I'm going to admit I haven't done my research on how much money it would cost, but I think you got to tag him. Right? You're not ready to get to a new quarterback. You can't give him a long-term deal. And it kind of sucks for Daniel Jones because he did as good as he could this year. But still, I don't know if you could pay him 5 years. But maybe they're willing, as I said last year, to say he's above the Flacco bar. Yeah. We'll have a cheap quarterback. And then unlike most teams that win Super Bowls, unlike the Chiefs who are paying Mahomes $500 million, they're going to have the assets to keep paying for good defensive players and maybe get him some receivers. So I think paying him is better than letting him go, but I think tagging him is probably the move unless it's some absurd number. There's a reason not to. I wish I did my research on that before. And when it comes to Saquon, I always say don't pay running backs. I think that's an exception. I mean, I think a lot of their offense around Saquon, I think he knows his value is, he said a few days ago, isn't top-notch because of the 2 injuries. He's not trying to reset the market, which is something great I'd want to see as a Giants fan, and he wants to stay with that team. So I think I'd pay Saquon and probably pay Daniel Jones and say the 2 of them are probably worth what they'd have to pay any normal quarterback.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. What do you think about Saquon? Do you think they should pay him? I think they kind of have to, too, especially because now they're talking about him being comeback player of the year. I would have said, again, preseason, don't pay Saquon. Yeah. He's missed basically 2 years now. He had one really great year. But now I feel like they have to. Both those guys had huge years, and now they're kind of stuck with paying them.
And by the way, I think Tony Pollard isn't much worse than Saquon, but for the Cowboys, I'm saying don't re-sign him. Draft another running back, don't pay him. But, yeah, I think they should. But when I'm looking at the Giants, I think they need Saquon. I think if they don't pay him, someone will be willing to, but it's really refreshing to see he's not trying to reset the market. So I think it's a good call. Yeah. Let's talk about America's team, or old America's team. I don't think anyone really cares about their failures, but either way, who's at fault for their loss. And by the way, Dak Prescott tied with Josh Allen, the league in turnovers, including playoffs.
Okay. I mean, I wasn't including playoffs, so I was going pure regular season here. I mean, I think overall it was just a pretty bad game. Dak didn't play particularly well overall. He had a pretty average Dak game, 1 touchdown, 2 interceptions. Honestly, their coaching really let down, especially like towards the end of the game. The clock management wasn't good again this year, and that like last play game, we just need to talk about that. I'm like almost like mad that like that just was like.
I mean, they weren't scoring there. It was just, and I honestly kind of like the trying to be creative, but that just wasn't it.
It just crashed and burned just so awfully.
So here's what I want to say. I've noticed a few things. I've really been thinking about the Cowboys the last few days. Their defense did as good as they could have. A few years ago, we said their defense was holding them back. To allow, I think it was like 23 points last year in a playoff game and lose, and 19 and lose. It's tough for the defense. And Micah Parsons, he's clearly frustrated, so there's nothing you could do. And the offense has great pieces. As I said, I love the running back core. I love CeeDee Lamb. They have great supporting receivers. Schultz is good, even though he messed up really badly at the end there. Yeah. And so I think it has to be Dak Prescott. The reason I won't say it's McCarthy is because even though he could have done much better late in that game, I think
we've seen worse out of him.
We've seen worse, but I don't think the Dallas Cowboys are a team to hire a Mike McDaniel or a Sean McVay.
No, they're not a
or Sean Payton.
Minded team by any means.
Maybe Sean Payton, but it's not that. It's that this is Jerry's team.
Yeah.
And Mike McCarthy's like a sheep to Jerry Jones, and he won't fire him because he could just control him. Exactly. That's why I kept him forever, even though everyone said he sucked. So the Cowboys, I think it's about time we stop saying, why don't they go hire someone? The only thing they could do better, I think, is hire a Sean Payton, who is bold, but will probably still listen to Jerry Jones if they pay him enough. But once again, not worth the draft picks, as you said in our Frank Wright clip. Yep. But I think you have to blame Dak at this point, because saying they just need 20 points to win a playoff game here is reasonable.
Especially with some of the weapons.
When they have enough weapons, and it's like Dak probably lost them 9 points net in that game. Given that 2 interceptions, one of which they were in field goal range, and then the Niners went and kicked a field goal before the half, so that's 6 points. And then one early in the game, he turned it over in his own side of the field, and then the Niners kicked a field goal. So those 9 points, that doesn't happen. They win this game. And quarterbacks make mistakes, and he's still probably above average quarterback.
Sure.
But if you can get a guy who's top 10, if you could draft someone, whatever it may be, if they can even get a Tom Brady, something like that, who I still don't think is great. He's been making mistakes, but this is a team that can win and go far. So there's not much to analyze. It's just weird because when I look at the Cowboys on paper, they seem good. Yep. They put up fine numbers on the defensive side of the ball, so it kind of has to be Dak.
And speaking of frustrations with Dak, Micah Parsons tweeted something. I do need to give some context here. He tweeted, I think it was last night, besides Mahomes, every team in the Final Four, his quarterback is on a rookie deal and surrounded by talent. That's an interesting take. He later then got a lot of backlash.
And the Cowboys were slandering Dak after the game, too, their own Twitter account.
He later got a lot of backlash. He was like, believe me, I'm never going to talk about Dak like that. I just said it was an interesting thing I noticed. Whatever. Clearly, there's a lot of, there's a lot of stuff going on in Dallas considering this. Obviously, I believe that was a shot at Dak, whether or not he says it or not. But considering that, how many people, even in Dallas and within the franchise, thought that was a shot at Dak, clearly there's some frustration building up there. And I'm almost, sick of being what's wrong with the Cowboys? What's wrong with the Cowboys? Why aren't they winning?
I'm so sick of it. It's got to be Dak. What else could it be?
They either need to, figure this out or just become irrelevant again. Because I'm just so sick of having this debate.
And the last
podcast for 3 years. We have the debate every year.
And by the way, it used to be they have to pay him, and now everyone's mad. But here's something I want to note about this game. The Niners won with Brock Purdy. So I guess you could say what you want about Dak, but either Brock Purdy outplayed him because he didn't make any mistakes, or the Niners have what the Cowboys have, but a better supporting cast. Yeah. So maybe if the Cowboys got Jimmy G, they wouldn't, the Niners were able to go to the Super Bowl and almost win it with Jimmy G. Yeah. So the Cowboys with Jimmy G, maybe they aren't good enough to win it. So maybe they do need that in addition to a quarterback, but it's just all shameful there. And honestly, about San Fran, I watched this whole game, and I came away with it not thinking anything new about them. It's weird. It's the same stuff. So I want to get to the prediction of the NFC Championship.
Yep.
I know we both predicted Niners at the start of the playoffs. You've been a little more flip-floppy all season. Who do you have?
I mean, I think I have to keep my loyalty with the Niners over the past few weeks. I think this really could be a shootout. And I honestly think the Eagles have a better chance of winning. But in my head, the way this game plays out, the Niners just defensively find the stop that we've been looking for all year for Jalen Hurts.
I mean, I don't see what I imagined all season, how this game would play out happening anymore.
Yeah.
I used to see it as Jalen Hurts maybe Nick Bosa makes some plays late, and Jalen Hurts throws a crucial interception, and Brock Purdy is just enough with Deebo Samuel to get 27 points. But at this point, I don't see the deep threat there as much with San Francisco as I've seen in previous years. It's a lot of short game, and honestly, that's not necessarily Philadelphia's strength.
It's a very boring style of
I know, and by the way, that's not Philadelphia's strength on defense, actually. So I do think San Francisco can win this game with a lot of little slants, with a lot of Kittle, with a huge run game. The run game is going to be what it takes to win this game for the Niners. And I used to see it happening with them winning 27-24, but at this point, I don't know if they could get 27, and I really don't think they'll hold the Eagles to 24. Here's what I do want to say. The way the Niners win this game is by winning the turnover battle, period. Jalen Hurts, when he's turned the ball over, that's when they've been vulnerable. And same with the Niners. When they've turned it over, they've been vulnerable. So Brock Purdy can kind of do something similar to what he did last week, but a little better. Maybe instead of 0-0, he has 1 touchdown, 0 interceptions, and they get to that 26 number. But they're going to definitely need to force, I think, 2 to 3 turnovers to win this game. Sure. I got to stick with San Fran just because if they win, then I could say I stuck with them the whole time. Yep. But realistically, I think Philly should be a favorite by a good 3 points. I see them winning this game at home. And I think Jalen Hurts isn't going to choke like we think he's going to.
Mm-hmm. Perfect. Do you want to get to the AFC game?
Yeah, I do. I said I think the winner of Bengals-Bills wins the Super Bowl. Yeah. I think I said that a few weeks ago, and obviously the Bengals surprised me by winning that. I said it'd be close. So I'm going to stick with what I said. And even if Mahomes was healthy, I think I'd be sticking with Joe Burrow and the Bengals just because they've done that before. They've gone into He's 3-0 against Patrick Mahomes. But after the Mahomes injury, there's just no debate. Yeah. And if the Bengals play up front, how they did against Buffalo, and Mahomes is hobbled, he's going to be screwed. I mean, times in the game against Jacksonville where I was like, Mahomes wants to run here so bad, but he knows he physically can't, so you just throw it into the ground, so they're utterly screwed. But I think this game, like Buffalo and Cincinnati, can be settled up front. So if the Chiefs can get Chris Jones going, if they could get that pressure to Joe Burrow, I think they can hold him to less points than he's put up in all their previous games against him. So I guess their only chance would be to hold Burrow to like 25 instead of 35, and for Mahomes to be just enough to get a few points past there. But realistically, I think the Bengals are the better team, and Mahomes' injury, it's just like they're definitely the better team now, in my opinion. So I'm taking the Bengals, and I think they're going to win the Super Bowl.
Yeah, I agree with that. I don't even think it's that the Bengals are going to have such a great game. Like, at this point, I honestly think that although we're going to obviously see the best of what Mahomes can do out there, I just think that they're not going to be enough, and like the Bengals are going to do enough. But I don't think by any means it's a nail biter, but I also don't think this is a shootout or the game of the year by any means. I think this could be a good game, but I don't think it's going to be some great game that we've been hyping up.
And I have to point this out. A big thing the Chiefs could do to win this game is Isaiah Pacheco. Yeah, he was dominant in the game against Jacksonville. He's what really kept their offense going. And the Bengals' run defense and their Bengals' run defense is good against Buffalo. But if they could start exposing that and then just use Mahomes' arm, they have a chance. Yep. So this game, I don't think that the fact that's like, I think the spread's like 1 or 2. I don't think that's crazy, but I'm still taking the Bengals, no doubt. I can get to a 30-second real quick about college basketball. We said we'd talk about it, and I'm going to do some stock watch with some teams and conferences. And you can't pick just one topic to talk about in college basketball now, and I absolutely love that the college basketball season right now is wide open. Usually we see like an undefeated Gonzaga, a great Kentucky team. It's wide open, so I'm going to do some stock watch. Purdue is up, first off. The Big Ten isn't playing so well, but Purdue's dominating. They only have 1 loss, and Zacky's just, I think he's averaging like 23 and 13 or something. He's leading the wood, and so Purdue's stock is up, and Gonzaga, as I said, their stock's down. Yep. Preseason, our friend Luke and I both said Gonzaga wouldn't do too great this year, and they've proven it. They lost to, I think, Loyola Marymount at home.
Yeah. Stuck in
big loss. Right now. So given that the team usually goes undefeated, and then I still predict them to lose in the Sweet 16, now the fact that they're doing this and they're ranked behind like Xavier and right next to College of Charleston, there's another like non-Power 5 to me. I don't trust them at all. Speaking of conferences, in the ACC, we see Miami ranked 19, Clemson I think ranked 24, which we don't normally see. And you know who we see down? Duke, UNC, and Q's. Although UNC went and beat Syracuse on the road this week.
And Duke actually beat Miami on Sunday.
I know. But a very injured Miami team. I don't think we see any of those 3 teams that usually dominate the ACC as dominant anymore. No, so it's interesting to watch. I think that whole conference's stock is down. Just like, but on the other hand, the Big 12 is up. And usually we see the Big 12 doing this, but it's just utterly absurd. That normally Kansas and Texas were like, okay, they'll be ranked top 10.
And now it's Kansas State, TCU,
but the fact that Kansas State and Texas are still ranked 9-10. Then you see Kansas State at 5 playing that high-scoring basketball, who lost to Iowa State this week, who's ranked 12, and TCU ranked 11. 5 teams in the top 12 is crazy. So The Big 12 is up, and as I said, the Big 10's down.
Yeah,
Usually we see the Big 10, kind of the teams drifting towards the end of the rankings because they beat up on each other so much. But I think that's not too different this year. I think they're beating up on each other so much, just instead of being ranked 15, 18, 20, 21, they're all out of the rankings. So I do think by the end of the season, they'll start trending to the back of the rankings, especially my Hoosiers, who should get bumped up. After 3 big wins, they were ranked 2 spots out of the top 25, just beat Minnesota. And Trace Jackson Davis, my favorite player in the country, Indiana's star, basically single-handedly won them the game against Minnesota last night. He is doing everything for that team, averaging 21-11. He had 25 and 21 last night with 5 blocks. And I went to check Wooden rankings, and he was plus 5,000. And it's not that there were many guys ahead of him. It's that Zach Edey's minus 450. So I want to say, I don't think TJD is worse than Edey. He's putting up similar stats, and the difference is Edey's playing like a stereotypical center, like Shibwe, who won it last year, while TJD's a ball handler. He does everything. He's like what you see guys winning MVP.
He's like a point forward.
I mean, when you're looking at the NBA MVP winners, he's playing more like how Giannis and Jokic play, while Edey's playing like a college basketball Wooden winner, like Shibwe. So I think that's why I trust Edey. But what it comes down to is they have similar stats, but Purdue's 19-1, number 1 in the country, and Indiana's out of the rankings. But I think it's kind of crazy that Zach Edey's minus 450, given the fact that there's still a lot of season left. Indiana still has 2 games at Purdue, including at home. There's a world in which Purdue gets, Indiana wins the Big Ten tournament, and they go, we'll take their best player over Purdue's. So I think that's maybe a good bet, but college basketball is wide open. I love it. The stocks are going up and down of all these players, but the Big 12, I can't lie, has been the dominant conference.
Yeah, for sure. I think we said, 7 teams in the top 25? That's
yeah,
absurd.
5 in the top 12.
Yeah, it's absurd. Let's get to some NBA. I know we've been promising it for the past few weeks. I know Spencer's Lakers just traded for Rui Hachimura. Do you want to give your immediate thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, there's a few things interesting happening in the Lakers, and I kind of wrote this, but I don't think it's biased, because honestly, when I'm looking around the league, the only teams that interest me are the Lakers, the Kings, and I guess maybe Boston.
You have a weird thing for the Kings.
I know. Well, the Kings, it's interesting. They're the number 3 team in the West. We didn't expect it at all, and they're lighting the beam. Sabonis is probably going to be an all-star starter, and De'Aaron Fox is looking great, so it's interesting. But we'll start with the Lakers. First, they trade for Rui Hachimura. You could start. Is it something or nothing?
I mean, I think it's definitely something. I mean, he's a good player. He was pretty good in college. He's had some good games in the NBA. Like, he kind of fell into a weird situation in Washington. They're stuck in mediocrity and worse. So I think that he just kind of fell out of whatever was going on there, and he needed to change the scenery. I think LA could be good for him.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's something, but not that much. I'm saying that as a Laker fan. Yeah. But what I do find interesting is that Thomas Bryant, who's a center for the Lakers, is playing out of his mind. He's putting up double-doubles. He's scoring a lot of points. He's shooting the 3-ball, which he never did when he was at Indiana. I can tell you that much. Yeah. So the fact that he's playing well. And now we see Anthony Davis returns last night. Played very well. Mm-hmm. And then you trade for Rui, and you already are starting LeBron Troy Brown. I don't see why all of a sudden when they're getting big men playing well, they start trading for more big men. Yeah. Like, it doesn't make sense to me how the rotation's going to work. And I really don't want to see Thomas Bryant get bumped out. I guess they'll probably... I really hope they start going with big ball, though. Yeah. I hope the Lakers start LeBron, AD, and still Thomas Bryant. Bring Rui in as a 6th man and still have Troy Brown to play. And that'll work. And then I guess they could play Westbrook and Schroeder. Westbrook hopefully still off the bench for Pat Bev. But I think the Lakers aren't in horrible position. What's most interesting for me to see is if Russell Westbrook, who's been playing his best basketball as he has ever with the Lakers in the last few weeks with AD out.
Okay, I was worried about where you're going to go there.
Obviously with the Lakers. How he's been playing the last few weeks. How that changes when AD returns and maybe when Rui starts playing. So I think the Lakers are at a point this season where I don't see them competing, but the next few weeks they could become an exciting team that we could see winning around the playoffs. And I know given that this season has a lot with LeBron getting older, AD being a trade candidate, and LeBron approaching Kareem's record, I think the Lakers are a team to watch, and if in the next few weeks they could provide some excitement, basically a reason for me to watch the NBA before the All-Star break.
Yeah, for sure. I don't dislike anything you said there.
Especially with the record, by the way, it's got to be on everyone's mind.
Yeah, for sure.
Let's talk about Sacramento for a second. You think there's anything there?
I mean, I think that they're a fun team to watch, and they actually do have some young pieces I like. Like, just overall, they're a fun team to watch. I don't think they're by any means making a finals run, but they have an underratedly deep team. I think they have at least 6 guys averaging over 10 points per game. That's definitely something. I mean, especially in a pretty loaded West Coast. They're winning big games, but obviously they started the year super hot, and they're not slowing down like some teams. I think definitely, the Pelicans are on a 6-game losing streak right now. Sacramento Kings are proving that they're here to stay. And they're definitely a team that's legit and you actually have to watch out for, but still, I don't think they win a series because the West is too deep, even though it's not that deep. But I want to do this. In the spirit of the NFL division or conference championship weekend, I want you to give me your Final Four NBA prediction. Got it. I've been looking forward to this here. For starters, Denver, best team in the West right now. I've absolutely loved watching them. About to have the 3-time MVP. I said it as much as I don't like watching him play. It's kind of just something I've come to peace with. My second team, a young, scrappy, up-and-coming team, a team that's hungry for some wins, and they'll get there, the Memphis Grizzlies. I legitimately think that there's a world in which they could win the finals. Yeah. I really do. I don't think it's going to happen, but I think who's to say if they get hot, who's stopping?
The finals winner's coming out of the East this year. I'll say it right now.
I agree with that as well. And I think it's going to be the next team I mentioned, the Boston Celtics. They have been absolutely lights out this year. In my opinion, and I think most people's the best team in the NBA. There really haven't been any low points for them. There's not even that much good things to say because it's just we've just come to expect at this point. My fourth team, Milwaukee, you can't underrate them. But with that being said, when I looked at the East, I turned to you and I said, there are 3 teams in the East I say should be a lock for the Eastern Conference Finals. If you haven't already guessed, that third team, Philadelphia 76ers, led by, I think in my opinion, the second best big man in the NFL, NBA, not including Giannis. I think of Giannis as power forward versus a center.
You think he's worse than Jokic, Embiid?
Yeah,
I'm taking Embiid over Jokic all day, personally.
You would? I disagree. I think Jokic is I think he does more for his team, and that's why.
Yeah, maybe, but I think he has to do more, and his team also doesn't go as far, but... and it's kind of like what I was saying last year, how there were like 7 teams in the East last year that were like, oh, they should win a series. Then the more and more I thought about it, it's like only 4 can win. So I see that. I'll start with the East because I think that Boston is going to be one of my teams, and I was really high on them last year. But something in my head says when you start that good, I don't know if they could really keep it up, even though I don't see a reason why not. But Milwaukee, honestly, is my lock. I think they're going to make it to the NBA Finals. I still trust in them. But preseason, I said Philly's a real team to watch. But really, my team, I think, to really watch, that was my third best team in the East, and I think there's a chance that it ends up being Brooklyn versus Milwaukee. I think Brooklyn can make some noise and upset the Boston Celtics. They've fallen short in previous years. I think this might be the time they get it right, given that Kyrie's actually committed. KD's playing really well. Their role players are doing decently. And it's not like a big 3 where there's so much controversy. It's just like they're playing solid basketball. And if Kevin Durant, when the playoff time comes, can play like Kevin Durant, and if he could outplay Jason Tatum, which I don't think he will, but I think he has a chance to, and a good chance, they can definitely get past Boston. So I think Brooklyn actually has a good shot.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I think it's fair. I think that they have a ton of talent overall. But I've noticed overall, they get really hot and they get really cold.
Yeah.
Like I think at one point they were on like a 16-game win streak.
But you know I'm always going for the high ceiling, and I think that ceiling actually can happen. In previous years I said it won't happen. This year it could. But I'm sticking with Milwaukee. We still haven't really seen a fully healthy Milwaukee team, and Giannis was looking great when he was out there. But I want to get to the West because in the West, Denver's obviously I'm going with them. When I'm looking at Denver and Boston, the team I'm more confident. This can sound crazy in like me being if I had to put money on one of them to make it to the conference final. I'm putting that money on Denver. I've been confident in them all year.
Just because the East you think is more loaded?
The East is more loaded, and honestly, I just think they're consistent. But my other team really came down tough because I think Memphis is the obvious choice. I think they are a scrappy team. I said before the season,
they're just hungry. They're fun to watch.
Yeah, and I said before the season, I had them beating Golden State in a series when they play. And I think Dallas is a team that I actually have written down. I told you I was going to pick because I love them. And they were able to upset, I think, the Clippers it was last year to make it, or it was the Nuggets, to make it to the Western Conference Finals. But how about this? I can pull this out of nowhere. I'm hitting the reverse card of my preseason prediction. The Golden State Warriors, last night, when I was watching that game, where Steph Curry was keeping them in it all night, and then he got ejected because Jordan Poole made a mistake, but Jordan Poole made it up and got them that win against, was it Memphis? I think the Golden State Warriors, they might be the team. I mean, they might be the team. They bested Memphis last year in the playoffs. They bested them last night. And I said before the season, I'm going to have Memphis beating them. I think the matchup has a high possibility of happening, while Dallas might be matched up against Denver and lose then. I think Golden State, with Klay Thompson playing better than I ever thought he'd play again, with Steph Curry being the same Steph Curry, Jordan Poole stepping up, which I didn't know if he would. This Golden State team, although they're the 9 seed, genuinely I think might be the second best team in the West.
Here's what I'll say. Last year, around this time, eerily similar, you picked another 500 team to make the finals, or at least make a run. That team's the Boston Celtics.
Yep.
So therefore, I have to give you respect on this Warriors take. With that being said,
the only thing is the Boston Celtics had never made it to the finals. Tatum wasn't proven in the playoffs. This is like, I feel like every 10-year-old out there is like, Curry's going to light it up and they're going to make it. So it's not that out of the woodwork, but I think every time I watch the Warriors and they're healthy and they're playing a good team, they seem to have what it takes to still hang in the game. And in the playoffs, I'll take the track record they have against Memphis.
You know who beat them the other night? I just want to real quick. The Chicago Bulls.
Okay.
The Bulls 43 points.
The Bulls are
You got to start running the ball. Our friend actually said Got to start running the ball through Vucevic. Shout out Jason.
I'm telling you, I'm taking the Lakers over the Bulls all day, 7 days a week. They're a better team.
I disagree with
If
you.
I had to put money on one of them to win a series, I'm taking the Lakers because that high ceiling.
LeBron.
But the NBA, I guess I'm kind of starting to get wrapped into it. As the NFL's starting to wind down, I feel like I have
Crazy
to.
how you change up.
Yeah, I know. It's college basketball is still better though.
Yep.
But yeah, in the NFL offseason carousel starting to get moving. We just posted something about Frank Reich. Go check that out. Even though the Panthers aren't necessarily the most interesting team, but yeah, we'll be back at it next week with Super Bowl predictions. I'm thinking Bengals over Eagles. You?
I'm taking Bengals over Niners.
So we'll see if that sticks. But yeah, thank you guys all for tuning in.
Yeah, thank you for tuning in. Make sure to like, subscribe, share with a friend. Thank you so much for all the love you've been showing on the recent videos. Thanks.